Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Miss Melissa Olthoff. I should have asked how to pronounce that, but could you introduce yourself and say how to say your name?
Hi, I'm Melissa Olthoff. We ignore the H. I write sci-fi and fantasy. I am an Air Force veteran. I grew up reading and then discovered Dragon Riders of Pern. Became so angry when I realized I could not be a Green Dragon Rider that I went and joined the Air Force, as one does. And then I started writing, made a whole bunch of friends, and through the power of friendship and a lot of caffeine, I've gotten to this place in my career. So happy to be here.
All right. In the next part of the interview, dear listeners, how we first found them. This was one of the ones Bain set up, but I was aware of her at least because she sort of orbits in the Chris Kennedy, Three Ravens, independent small press circuit before she went all professional and traditional with Bain. It's cool. It's cool. You go where the market goes, right? All right. So since you did mention you were in the Air Force, we ask all of the guests that were veterans these questions. Do you think your time in the Air Force affects the way you tell stories?
Oh, absolutely. So there I was, is always how you tell a story. 10% truth is the only rule, really, outside of starting it. So there I was. That was a huge lasting experience where it's affected like every corner of my life. So it absolutely informs my writing and my storytelling techniques.
Okay. Do you ever draw from people you knew while you served, whether officially or unofficially?
Yes, in a lot of different ways. So there are characters that are 100% based off of people that I know, good and bad. And then there are archetypes where I'm like, okay, I need a jerk that fits this criteria. And you know what? It doesn't necessarily fit any one particular person that I served with, but it fits a type that I served with, good and bad. So absolutely, I draw from that experience all the time.
Do you feel like since you've served, the way you engage with, so that's how you create content, has the way you engage with content as a reader, a watcher of the shows, player of the games, has that changed since you served? So
fun fact, I am a natural introvert. I don't act like an introvert, mostly because the Air Force beat it out of me. Like I was taught how to extrovert, and I can fake it all day long, and then eventually I'll crash and I'll need to recover my poor little introverted heart. But being able to do podcasts and these like feral reels that I've been doing and just being chaotic on the internet and at conventions, that is learned behavior that really started when I was an Air Force cadet and having to get up in front of the classroom or leading, a flight of other cadets and figuring out how to be a little bit more confident than I was as a high school student. So I can go back, I can trace every good thing that I have in my life to joining the Air Force, like direct line of results.
So did you go to the academy when you said cadet, or would you do the ROTC route?
No, I went to a real college and I had fun. I don't know the fun that I had, but I had fun. And I make fun of my husband all the time because my husband went to the Air Force Academy. I went to a real college, and I was a cadet. I was at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University at the time. I believe it was the second largest Air Force detachment in the country. So we had anywhere from 300 to 500 cadets that I worked with, freshman through senior year. So it was a great experience. But yeah, I had fun. I was not an academy cadet.
Okay, that is definitely unique. So if you're naturally an introvert, does that make it difficult when you go to cons? I don't have a problem talking to people. I never did. And I don't really care what other people think. So walking up to strangers doesn't bother me. And so for me, like, and then of course we grew up before the internet was all over the place. Like we didn't have this, stunting our social skills by hiding behind a screen. So
True.
I kind of was just forced. If you ever wanted to go on a date, you had to go up and talk to people, right?
Right.
But was that something that was difficult for you, like going up and starting the process of engaging with your peers when you were doing the JR or the ROTC thing?
There's always that level of nerve wracking, especially when, it's a new group of people. Like, yes, there are still some nerves that never go away. Like walking into a room full of people and realizing, oh, I've got to sit at the front and I've got to talk and I've got to be entertaining. And I'm not sure I've had enough caffeine to do either of those things coherently. Hence, there's this thing called herd at the con where inevitably I will say something the wrong way and everybody will laugh at me. But you know what? That's fine because at least it was entertaining. But yeah, no, it definitely is a learned sort of thing where like, okay, I can do this. I am awesome. I am not going to mess it up and just go out and have fun. And that's really the thing with going to conventions is that at the end of the day, it's fun. I am surrounded by a whole bunch of nerds that love the same things I do. And having a conversation about that is a great time.
Okay. I don't know, like the crowds aren't my thing. So your profile mentioned like that's more of the spicy trauma stuff than the peopling. So your bio mentions that you also raised feral children. So which was harder, doing the Air Force thing and hurting the young airmen or hurting your kids? Because I think sometimes the kids were worse than the young dumb privates.
Oh my goodness. That is, yeah, children. Oh my God, why? I love them so much, but some days it's like, why? But why? When I was airfield operations officer. So I was in charge of roughly 100 19 to 21-year-olds. And yeah, there were a lot of late night phone calls. Airman Snuffy kind of did something not okay again. And Captain blah, 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 we need to talk about it. I'm like, it's 3 a.m. Can we talk about it tomorrow? The answer was no. It was never no. But with kids are so much harder. It is like the hardest, most wonderful thing I have ever done. And I have 2, and they have reached the preteen stage of life where they are all the sassy, they have all the attitude, and it's exhausting because they're on summer vacation now. It's gonna be a long summer.
Yeah, I'm told girls are worse than boys when it comes to the teenage preteen years.
Uh-huh.
I have 2 boys, so I couldn't speak on that, but like
I have one of each.
My sister has girls, and she swears it was and a boy, and she swears the boys were easier. So it's interesting. Did you pass on your nerdy proclivities to them? Did you force them to love the things?
I didn't have to force anything. It was amazing. They watch Star Wars. My son is currently obsessed with the Clone Wars and is
excellent.
Right. He's incredibly upset that there's not like new toys for it because it's new to him. Right. But I'm like, well, man, that show came out a minute ago. Right. They're not making new stuff for it, but obsessed with Star Wars. He reads this Wings of Fire Dragon, kid book series that I would have devoured at his age.
My kid's reading it too.
My daughter she's a little bit more on the girly side of things right now. She's watching a lot of the old Nickelodeon and Disney, like preteen type shows that I definitely watched at her age. But they both read constantly. Like if they want a treat, they ask to go to Barnes and Noble. They're like, we want to go to the bookstore because they know that I'll always buy them at least a couple of books and then they can use their chore money for a whole bunch more. So yeah.
Strategy. I like it. That's actually how I learned to cook, because we learned when it was library weekend, because we'd go once a month to the public library and check out all the books. Is that was Saturday. That first Sunday, you did not mess with my mother. She was reading. Leave her alone. Don't ask her what's for dinner. You either do it yourself or she's going to make you do it. We got smart though, like your kids, saving the money and letting you buy the books so they can use them on other things. We learned if we asked for meals that always had leftovers on Friday night, when we went to the library on Saturday, we had leftovers so we didn't have to cook.
Nice. Very smart.
I'm sure, looking back, she knew exactly what we were doing, but she let us. So that's one of the things I realized as a parent. My parents probably weren't as dumb as we thought at the time.
Well, I never thought my dad was dumb. He was incredibly smart, and also like he had this great thing where if we asked for something and he said no, he would always stop and be like, make an argument, convince me. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So I try and do that with my kids.
Well, I never thought my parents were dumb, but we definitely thought, because you think you're smartest person in the world, that you're getting one over on things. And I'll give you as an example, like when it's bedtime at whatever time it was, and you're under the blanket sweating profusely because it's the South, and you've got the flashlight, which adds to the heat factor. And we thought we were pulling one over because we had to keep reading. And occasionally you had to turn the flashlight off and let some air in so you didn't die. And of course, my parents knew we were reading. They just didn't care because we were reading. We weren't doing something else. It was horrible. Kids these days will never know that experience because they have their backlit little electronic devices.
I disagree, because you know what I found under my son's bed about a year ago? I found 3 different flashlights and a pile. No, pile is too organized. A sea of books under his bed because he was reading by flashlight, and I was so proud. Super proud mom moment. I'm like, I used to get in trouble because I would read Berenstain Bears by like nightlight when, after going to bed. And here's my kid. He's reading by flashlight. I'm so proud.
That would definitely be a give the kid dessert moment.
Yep.
Just don't tell him why he's getting dessert, obviously.
Like,
you have to let them feel like they're getting some independence, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the fun part, is passing. In fact, we've actually are planning an episode on like trauma bonding and how we will force our kids to watch the things that moved us, like the Goonies.
Oh my God.
Land Before Time, Never Ending Story. Like, we're going to be doing some of the franchises that built us, and officially it's nostalgia, but really it's trauma bonding.
Right. Like Littlefoot and his mother. I can't, my kids watched it and I had to leave the room because I was bawling at that scene. We have not subjected them to the Never Ending Story yet, though.
Or like Bambi, when the mom becomes somebody's beef jerky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it was just one of those moments where, like, we suffered, or as a boy's case, like Old Yeller.
Oh no.
Moving.
Nope, the dog always lives. Y'all, in my stories, the dog always lives. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Or then, of course, there's Where the Red Fern Grows and The Bridge to Terabithia.
Oh, dude, no. Oh,
that was a good one. I liked the bridge to Terabithia. That was really beautiful. Good. It was. And it's anybody who's ever been into artsy things and had your family not support it because it's always a waste of time to do something productive so you can earn a living. Like, you can relate to that book so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely dig it. All right. Before we get too far afield, this is the Blasters and Blades podcast, so we do have to do the religion questions. Are you ready for this?
I am so ready. Let's go.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Firefly.
Okay. What is it about Firefly that speaks to you?
Okay. So, slightly longer answer. I grew up watching Star Wars. I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad. Honestly, you cannot go wrong with any of these 3. But Firefly was so freaking cool. It was a space western. He's a space cowboy. I loved Mal. I loved River. I loved Simon. Kaylee was my favorite character, hands down. I love the storytelling. I think that the movie was excellent. I would have preferred season 2 and then a movie, or maybe a movie and then season 2, preferably with Shepherd Book still, alive, would have been amazing. I love the storytelling aspect of it. The actors were top notch. Nathan Fillion is one of my favorite characters, and it is always too soon to joke about Wash. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Always.
All right, and because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
That's a really tough one, and I don't like you as much anymore. But if I have to choose, I would have to say Chronicles of Narnia, if only because I discovered that one first, read it so many times as a kid. That was one of the first fantasy series I discovered, I think. And runner-up would be Wheel of Time, because while lengthy, so to speak, it was really cool. I didn't watch the Amazon show. I just read the books, so as one does.
And they just canceled the Amazon one. I mean,
I heard that. I'm like, man, I was thinking about starting to watch it, but
I don't even know how many seasons they do. My problem with the Wheel of Time show, I've tried to read the books. It just wasn't for me.
fair.
I watched the first season of the show. My problem with the show was I had nothing, like I had no background knowledge to poison the well of the series.
Right.
But after watching Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings series, like in the way they filmed that and knowing they could do so much better on so much less, now that our capabilities are even better, like comparing Lord of the Rings, the movie series, to The Wheel of Time, it felt like a high school drama troupe was doing the production at that point, because the costuming just wasn't there.
No, fair. Like I said, I didn't watch it. Quite frankly, most of my very, very tiny amount of TV time lately goes to cartoons with the kids. So
that's valid.
Occasionally I get to watch adult shows. Occasionally, sometimes.
So what was your first, because you primarily do a lot of fantasy stuff. That seems to be, I mean, I know you write sci-fi too, but it seems to be fantasy is where it's at for you. So what was your first fantasy? Like if you had to pick something and you're not stifled by my list, what would be the first one for you, the formative one?
Oh my goodness. If we are talking adult fiction, then I would have to say, like, because once I understood that Dragon Riders are pertinent with science fiction, that's over here, right? Anne McCaffrey was very clear. This is sci-fi. And then I read Dragon's Dawn and I'm like, yep, she right. It's sci-fi. This is awesome. The first adult fantasy novel I ever read, because I picked these two up, I picked Dragonflight up at the same time as I picked up Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon's The Black Griffin. And discovering the Valdemar series, oh my God. I can go back and reread those and go, oh, this is why I write like this here or like this over here. It's because of that series. So Mercedes Lackey had a huge impact on so many aspects of my life. So it's very cool. Valdemar, 100% fantasy. My all-time favorite.
I don't know. For me, it was, I started with the Choose Your Own Adventure books, the Lone Wolf series, which was awesome. I kept those. Somehow they survived our mini moves as a Navy brat, and I passed those on to my kids, who also read the heck out of them. But it's a good one. Of course, I cheated when I read those. I would read ahead to know what ending I wanted. But, I know, shocker. And then the Belgarion series by David Eddings.
Yes, I have that on my bookshelf still. I love those books.
That is the reason I love wolves so much, because they had that scene where they were traveling and they were using the wolf form. They wasn't like a werewolf; he was just shifting. But seeing the grandfather shift into the wolf, I'm like, that is so cool. I want to be a wolf, because I read that one. So I was in the 4th grade. I got kicked out of math class because I had a Stephen King book behind the math book because I was bored in class. This is where they found out I was colorblind that year.
Oh.
And of course, it was a green chalkboard with yellow chalk. I just couldn't see any of it anyway. So I was just bored. So I just would bring books to read. I probably shouldn't have been reading Stephen King books at that age. I also didn't really like them. It was just shock value.
Fair.
But after that, my mom introduced me to David Eddings' Belgariad and the Malorian series, and then the Shannara Chronicles.
Terry Brooks. Oh my goodness. Also a huge impact, because one of my uncles, he would usually get me books for Christmas or my birthdays, and he got me the Sword of Shannara, and I'm like, this is a post-apocalyptic world. Holy crap, this is so cool. This is like elves and dwarves and all these freaking cool fantasy things, and it's clearly a post-apocalyptic nuclear war setting. Oh my God, this is awesome.
So that's funny you say that, because I didn't catch that it was supposed to be post-apoc until I watched the TV series. And then you see the aircraft carry on it, and I'm like, that's not right. And so I went and reread it. I'm like, huh. I just read it as, like, I mean, it's all there when you know what you're looking for. But at the time, it didn't register that was modern stuff that they were looking at as these artifacts.
Right. It was so cool. And then he had I cannot remember the names for him, but he had 2 other trilogies, and one was set like in essentially modern day America. And then there was this like bridge trilogy that connected the two series, and you got to see like, oh crap, everything's gone to crap, everything's awful, and we follow this group of kids for the most part, and then like at the end of the trilogy, it's like, oh, there go the nukes. This is what happened. Oh man, it blew my teenage mind away. I love that series so much.
There was a significant portion of my childhood where I walked around looking at the ground, hoping I would find those elf stones.
Oh my God, right.
It was definitely like my happy place, and I dig, you know, the fantasy too. Like I like all of it, but I really that just spoke to me for some reason. So, all right, and because you like dragons so much, we're adding a special religion question just for you.
Oh.
So, Rain of Fire, Aragon, or Damsel?
Oh my God. Okay. You know what? I know that Aragon, the movie, was not great. It wasn't. But I really love the book. And of the three, that is literally the only movie I've actually seen. So I got to go with Aragon.
Well, I mean, the books count too.
Oh, good, because I have not read those books either. But I do have Aragon still. And I am so glad you asked me about this, because I got to get that book down for my son. Yes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like you want to pass on like the things you loved, right? Like it's part of the fun.
Yes, it is. And then actually getting to talk about it. Like my daughter, I don't remember what, but it was City of Embers, I think, that she read for school. And then she just sat and she just for an hour was talking about the book and like the play-by-play. And I'm just sitting there like just so proud, like, yeah, this is what it's like to be a reader.
Yeah, I saw somebody shared a meme. It's like some of the things that are that you don't ask, or that readers get really upset about, and it's always, of course, like the Library of Alexandria, and when you have to end like when they read the last page of a series they really like sometimes you just don't want it to end.
Right? You start slowing down, like, oh no, this is the last book, and I'm getting towards the end, and I don't want it to be over. I'm never going to be able to read it for the first time again.
If I could have a superpower, like that would be one of them. I want to be able to selectively forget. So every time I read my favorite series, it's the first time.
Yeah. There was this great reel going around a little bit ago, and like this girl is like making a deal with the devil, y'all. Like she's wearing a hoodie and everything. She's got a stack of books. Like I think it was ACOTAR, Throne of Glass. She's like, I want to be able to read these for the first time. I would give my soul to read these for the first time again. The devil's like, would you now? Are you sure? Yes, I want to read these for the first time. And devil's like, deal. And then the chick takes her hood off, and she's a redhead because redheads have no souls. And so she won a deal over the devil. I'm like, that's amazing. And I would like that opportunity.
So I dug it up on my phone. The things bookworms are upset about: 1, sequels coming out in different sizes than the first book. Yes, because you want your bookshelf to be orderly. I get it. Damaged books that you get in the mail. That has happened to me. Amazon has a few times not lined it right, so the tape of the box ruins the book. Oh no! Sacrilege. I send it back though. Knowing that you'll die before you read your entire TBR list.
Oh jeez.
And then finally, the time the Library of Alexandria got burned down.
Okay. Yes. And I would just like to point out that our TBR list is probably why we're all going to be coming back as ghosts, because unfinished business. So we're going to get to keep reading after. It's going to be just fine.
Yes, or we could cheat and do the great book club in the sky where we can actually talk to the authors and ask them, was the blue curtain really just a blue curtain, or was it symbolic of something?
It was just a blue curtain.
Yeah, that's the one thing that annoyed me about being an English major at one point. Was like, what if the cigar is just a cigar? Like, dude likes to smoke because he needed a hobby and it gave him something to do with his hands. I don't know. It
made the character a little bit more grounded. That's the answer.
Yeah, I've had people, even about my books, about like details that were just one-offs, because I'm particular about trying to get the paragraphs kind of uniform in size where I can. So sometimes I'll add a throwaway line if it fits, just to get the just to get the sentence count to balance so it flows a little better. So it was one of those situations where it was a one-off about a bad guy that was never supposed to be more than a one-off. And they started asking me what it really symbolizes. And I'm like, my OCD about paragraph lengths, that's what it symbolizes.
Right? Sometimes our brains just throw out random stuff. And you're like, oh no, that's really cool. I have to do something with that now. Crap.
I've had sequels where what I thought was a bit character became important. So I'm like, oh crap, I got to readjust my outline.
Yep. Secondary characters, sometimes they go, no, I'm important. And you go, oh, okay.
The hard part is sometimes they want you to give the secondary character their own book, but they're not flushed out enough that it would stick. Like the comic relief character, like they're not the same character if you flush them out enough that they're more than that, right? And then will it still pop with the readers that loved him because he was the guy with the one-liners? I don't always think it translates as well.
Yeah, it really just depends on the character. It really does. And whether or not you have room to flesh them out more and actually make it make sense.
Yeah, it's the kind of character that you know that no matter what happens, their last dying breath will be taunting the guy that kills them. Because if you're already going to go...
my heart for those characters, man.
Yeah, like you see the movies where the guy's like, dig your own grave. And I'm like, well, screw it. If you're going to kill me anyway, why am I going to do the work for you? You know, pack sand. And so that's kind of my attitude about life in general. So those characters resonate with me.
Yeah.
And of course, I realize in most of the plots, they're digging it because they're trying to buy time so they could maybe get away. Like, I get it, but I'm also stubborn. Probably too stubborn for my own good.
We all have our character flaws.
Speaking of characters, so one of the crying shames of becoming a character is growing up and being adult is we don't ask each other the important questions anymore. So we are bringing that back. I know this is the worst segue known to man, but we're just going to roll with it and ask you, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Brachiosaurus. Thank you so much for asking me. The reason it is Brachiosaurus and not something freaking awesome like Velociraptors is simply because, one, I love them as a kid. I love them so much. And when I was in, oh God, I'm going to do time math. When I was in 3rd grade and Jurassic Park, the original movie came out and you saw those brachiosaurs on the screen, I'm like, oh my God, they're just as beautiful as I thought they'd be. So yes, Brachiosaurs, my favorite. Thank you.
Are you going to watch the new Jurassic Park that's coming out?
Oh, I have no choice, my friend. I have zero choice in the matter because my son, outside of being obsessed with Star Wars, is also obsessed with dinosaurs. Like, he's just checking all those boxes.
Okay. Has he watched Camp Cretaceous yet?
Oh yes, we've been watching like that whole series.
So we watched that with my youngest. We watched all of those, and apparently they have a sequel series that follows when they get home. Yeah, I have to go watch that one.
It's interesting. It's very heavy into the conspiracy theory stuff. I watched most of that with the kids just to make sure it was still age appropriate for them. But I mean, that stuff is great. It's a great tie-in.
I'm cautious about that, but I've learned the ones that worry about that sometimes are overly paranoid because they expect to be offended by stuff. I have seen shows that were supposedly this, extreme political diatribe, and I watch them. I'm like, there's no there. We're like, what are you talking about, bro? It's just like Damsel was panned. It was, it's everything that's wrong with the strong female character trope where it really just is a man with boobs and has no character and I get why that bugs people.
Yeah.
But they were so ready to be offended that it's almost like they didn't watch the same movie I did because they didn't see any of that.
Okay. That one is on my list to watch.
It's really good.
I don't have.
The trope is in theory, she becomes too good at everything all at once. And I get why, but if you pay attention to the detail, everyone that came before her and died left notes. So she's learning every step of the way. The next person gets a better chance at salvation. And so for me, that made perfect sense. We all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. So that didn't bother me. And the fact that she was strong because she didn't want to die, survival instinct's real in everyone. I don't care how prissy you are or how overly feminine. Nobody wants to die. And so doing anything to survive, that didn't strike me. And maybe it's our military experience. I don't look at that as odd. I've met plenty of extremely feminine girls that had no problem rolling around the mud with us. So it didn't bug me as much as some of these people that are chronically offended by everything.
That just sounds exhausting.
I think some of it is the rage bait gets clicks, and so they're the loudest voices because it gets the hate shares.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't really need that much of an excuse to watch cartoons with my kids. I suffered through 8 seasons of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Getting to watch Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory and like dinosaurs with my kids or Clone Wars it's not great.
Star Wars Rebels was a good one if you like the cartoons for Disney. And Bad Batch is on my list of ones I need to watch.
I don't think we haven't broken into Bad Batch yet, but we have watched some Rebels.
When Disney just goes back to entertaining and they forget all the political messaging, they tell some really good stories.
Oof. I gotta admit, hands down, Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie.
I love that one. It was really well done. They leaned into the lore, and you think, well, I know exactly what's going to happen because this is going back before a known event, and it still was enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Disney had one where this hotel had a bomb shelter in the basement because just when it was built, and that bomb shelter for whatever reason had a glitch that made it a time travel machine, and so they were going like all throughout the decades, like meeting various people at this hotel. And there's some mystery under, like, it was cheesy, and I'm like, this is storytelling at its word, simple and pure and fun. And that's how I remember the kids stuff. It wasn't all this over political messaging. It was just fun.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to gift to my kids when we watch stuff.
Absolutely.
So lastly, and most importantly, because it's near and dear to my heart, we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. We are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. So coffee or tea, and how do you take it? I'm going to guess that's coffee in a flowery cup.
Yep. So this is a mocha. I don't actually drink coffee because gross. I drink caffeinated chocolate milk like all the time. So you see me at a con, I am like 99% likely to have a mocha in my hand. And if I don't, I will have one soon.
So I was told that I went to Scotland once for the pipe band I was in. And one of the things I was told the weather in Scotland is it's got 3 weather conditions: raining, just got done raining, or fixing to rain. It sounds like that applies to you and your hot chocolate. Or your mocha. Drinking, just got done drinking, or fixing to drink a mocha. Right? That's about it.
Pretty much. Honestly, at one point last December, Marisa Wolf and I were head down working on a crazy deadline schedule, and I'm pretty sure at one point if you had cut me, I would have bled mocha because that was all caffeine induced madness and chaos, and it was amazing. But I do drink water too.
Do you drink your mochas? Do you make those at home, or do you go to like Starbucks or baristas somewhere at some coffee shop?
I cheat. When I'm at home, all I do is I make chocolate milk and I add some instant espresso to it, so it's essentially a iced mocha from Starbucks, but not anywhere near as expensive or bad for me. Ish.
Okay, I know that's my dream, was when I have a big enough kitchen, I want to get my own espresso machine.
Oh, I just use the instant stuff and hot water and I'm good to go.
I don't know. I paid for grad school working as a barista, so like for me, making it is fun.
Nice.
And I really enjoy it. It's also you can cut calories by controlling the ingredients. So when you make your mocha, do you prefer it with the dark chocolate or the milk chocolate base? Because the Ghirardelli gives you the chance to do both.
Oh, I use dark chocolate. Like, that is a personal choice. I understand there are many, many choices that y'all can make. Dark chocolate, 100%, whether I am drinking it or eating it. It's yummy.
Okay. So for your dark chocolate, have you tried European sipping chocolate?
I have not, but I have been told that it is worth trying.
So there's a what do you call it? A chocolatier, I think is the name of the company. They make the chocolate on site. Mm-hmm. And then, they have obviously they sell it locally, but you can go into the store and get some. And for a while they had that on the menu, and I'm like, oh, it's just like hot chocolate. I'll be okay. And then it comes out in this little espresso cup, and it's so rich. Like, I took one sip and I felt like my eyes were going to roll back in my head. It was so sweet. I had to when I was in the Army, we would use the coffee grounds that come in the MRE. We put them directly under our lip as in the gums, so it's caffeine straight to the bloodstream. Caffeine does not bother me. This sugar overload was so much. I had to give it to my wife. I'm like, you can have this. Otherwise, I'm just going to pay for it, and I'm not drinking it. It was just too much.
So I will, when I'm at conventions, obviously I can't make my own. So half of my bounciness at that point comes from drinking Starbucks, which has way more sugar than what I am used to. So it's not just caffeine. It's the sugar overload.
Absolutely. That's actually one of the reasons I switched from Coke to Diet Coke before. Like obviously it's got 0 calories on the Diet Coke. I'm not convinced that makes it suddenly healthy. I'm sure whatever they're substituting the sugar with is going to like cause my insides to turn to formaldehyde or some point. But it's less sweet, and I like Coke, and then Pepsi's even worse. They're just too sweet for me. So I'm with you. Like my sugar tolerance isn't what it used to be when I was younger.
No, it's not.
And of course that's
why we don't do time math, because I'm still in my 20s and you can't tell me otherwise.
I remember when we used to get those straw like pixie sticks that were just basically pure sugar and you were drinking it. Like I tried that when the kids got one a year or two ago, and I'm like, oh my God, no.
It's
like
pure
how?
Sugar.
It's pure sugar. With just enough flavoring to justify it as candy.
A little bit.
Yeah, it was. My sugar tolerance is, and it's never been great, but it's just like some of those things. Anyway, all right. Well, we're gonna pause for a moment where we shamelessly show for the woman this time, and then we're gonna come back and talk about your books.
Yay!
Hey there, this is author Katie Cross. I'm coming at you with an offer for a best-selling fantasy audiobook titled Flame, and it's totally for free. Here's a little bit more about it. Dragon servants Sana and Isadora Spence live deep in Leadham Wood, where persnickety dragons and wars on the borders are the least of their worries. Thanks to years of simmering tension, the hidden village is destined to crack, and soon. Sana's deep love for the giant beast causes her to make an irreversible mistake, while Isadora's disinterest in the dragons leads her to a fateful decision that will change the course of the entire world. Can the sisters prevent everything they know from falling apart? Or do they allow it to break and pave the way for new growth? Join the beloved sister witches in Flame, the first book in the Dragon Master trilogy. Just go to www.katiecrossbooks.com/flame-audiobook to get your free copy today.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. So before we move into talking about the Rise from Ruin book that brought us here, which is about to come out, how did you go from, like, obviously you were nerdy and you liked to read all the things as a kid. How did that transition into you deciding to tell your own stories?
Ooh, okay. So I have always been inclined to write. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I would always write little stories. I was like you, sometimes bored in class, and I would draw pictures of dragons and make stuff up. And half the time I was just daydreaming, like, fan fiction for whatever cartoon series I was currently obsessed with. And I wrote a few things, didn't really do much with it, had kids, blah, blah, blah. And then the power of friendship is really what got my career going. My oldest friend, Casey Moores, we met when we were lieutenants, or at least I was a baby lieutenant, when we were stationed at Moody Air Force Base together. And he contacts me out of the blue. I was in this man's wedding and I hadn't heard from him in a couple of years. And then one day out of nowhere, hey, Melissa, do you want to read this short story for me? Like, Alpha read it. I got to, submitting it for an anthology. I'm like, heck yes. Zombie story. I am in. So I read it, gave him feedback. And then he was like, have you heard of this NaNoWriMo thing? I'm like, a nano what now? He's like, it's where you just try and write a lot of words in November. I'm like, sure, why not? So I did. And it had been the first time in years that I'd written anything, and wrote like 14,000 words and sent it to him. He's like, not bad. Hey, guess what? There is this open call for Chris Kennedy Publishing, and it was an urban fantasy anthology. And he was like, why don't you try it? Like, it just has to be an urban fantasy story. Why don't you give it a shot? I'm like, okay, cool. When's it due? He's like, 2 weeks. Okay. All right. Challenge accepted. And my story was accepted. So that was my first pro credit was with Chris Kennedy Publishing, because Chris is awesome. He is all about bringing in new authors, and he always keeps usually 4 open call slots in his anthologies. And that's how I got my spot, or how I got my start. Words are hard, y'all. Okay. This is mouth words, finger words, 2 entirely different things. I submitted to the next open call. I got accepted. And then I was asked for the first time, I was asked to submit a story for an anthology, and it wasn't open call. It was, we want you to write us a story for the Salvage Title universe. And that led to a completed 4-book trilogy. The fourth one just came out today while we're recording this on May 30th. And things just kind of snowballed from there. I'm on my 13th novel now, I think. I could count on my fingers, but let's not. Countless short stories, and really all of it, every opportunity I've had is essentially because of the power of friendship. I am 100% a fan of the whole rising tide concept and working together. And like we talked about before we started, like, don't be a jerk. Just be yourself, but remember that everybody talks to everybody in this industry. So be nice. It doesn't cost you anything.
Now, were you already a fan of short content, or were you just doing that because, the challenge, and then it was just a way to get your foot in?
So, yes.
All of the above.
So I had never really been a huge anthology reader until Casey Azell, another one of my, like, holy crap, we've been friends forever. She had a short story published, I think it was Black Tide Rising Universe with John Ringo. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read this story. And then I'm like, ooh, anthologies are great because I can use this as a smorgasbord to discover new authors. Heck yes, I am so into anthologies now. And then I got to start, like, actually submitting for them, which is still so freaking cool. So yes, when I was younger, I didn't really read anthologies much until I understood what they were for, which is one, on the author side, to give new authors like a chance and to introduce readers to a whole bunch of different authors and get to find out new stories.
So short stories actually didn't start in the anthology format. It actually started in the periodicals and the magazines and the newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would basically serialize. And then that's where you get the concept of a braided novel. You would take all the short stories that were published in various venues, and you'd string them together into the one coherent story they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're not really short stories, but they're kind of. So I was a tag along with the Girl Scouts because my sisters were both Girl Scouts, and I was too young at the point to join Boy Scouts because girls can start younger than boys. So my little sister was involved, and my older sister obviously was old enough. And so that's where the tag along comes from. They're naming it after the siblings that get stuck getting dragged along to all the events.
That's adorable.
And of course, I was a boy, and I didn't really get along with my brother. So it's like they just gave us both books. And so it was the Reader's Digest version of all these classic stories, which is just, the seriously abridged versions, which is basically the short story versions of these classic novels. Because these classic novels are 40, 50,000 words. They're not as long as modern novels. And so I realized how fun that was. So for me, like, I've been obsessed with it just because that's how I started reading. So I still go back to short stories, even though the magazines don't really exist anymore. The anthologies sort of pick up the slack. And that's why Bayonet Books publishes anthologies. It's sort of my labor of love. If I break even, I'm calling it good. Because, obviously you got to pay the editor and the artist. But I absolutely love short content. That's the highlight when we do those, is getting to read those submissions.
Nice.
Although we have had some funny events. We had one guy for the Cogs and Cutlasses anthology we did, which was all steampunk. He sent us a 55,000 word novel. And I'm like, great, not a short story. I digged it, but maybe don't put this in an anthology where you're sharing almost all of your royalties with people who contributed less than a fraction of the word count when your story is in it. Maybe, flesh this out a little bit and publish it solo.
Yep.
As a standalone book. I've never had anyone send me a full novel for an anthology.
I mean, he probably just got a little excited.
I have some of my novels that started off as a short fiction joke that became more, and I just let it go where it went. Like I get it. But yeah, it's short content is fun. In fact, we published them on our own. We published some with Three Ravens and then some on our own just because they're so fun. I absolutely love it. And if you're broad enough, because we used to do really, really narrow on what we're looking for, if you make it more broad stroke themes, people surprise you with some of the weirdly creative stuff they'll send in.
Yeah.
Like we did one with tanks, and it ended up being like ghost tanks, which I'm like, I wouldn't have thought of that, but it's awesome.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Basically, lost the war, but didn't want to surrender until the enemy was kicked off their planet. And so they fought even in death, and they just possessed their tank, and they kept fighting. That's got to be a novel at some point.
Nice.
But okay, so with that out of the way, we brought you here to talk about your Rise from Ruin story. So I'm going to throw the cover up while we talk from here on out. But what is the origin of this story? Like, where did the idea of this come from?
Well, two answers. One, I am so glad you brought up short stories because I entered the Bain Fantasy Adventure Award contest a couple years ago. Don't ask me to do time math. Again, I forget. I think it was 2 years ago. And I came in second with a short story that I actually expanded into this novel. So yes, this originally was a short story. And I remember maybe like 10 days before the deadline for that contest was coming up that like I was very smug, y'all. I'm like, I am not going to stress this year. I have no time. I'm working on another project. I have no ideas. It's fine. Next year, I will try this again next year. Yeah, that morning I woke up with a Griffin's voice in my head, and I'm like, oh, now I've got ideas. I'm going to write this down for like, next year. 4,000 words later, I'm like, well, I guess I'm writing this short story right now. And I finished it the next day because the voices were that clear in my head. So the two books, like I've said before, that were foundational to like everything for me was Anne McCaffrey's Dragonflight, the Dragon Riders of Pern series, and Mercedes Lackey and Larry Dixon's The Black Griffin. I loved both of them. It was sci-fi, it was fantasy. With the Black Griffin, Scandronon, that was the first non-human character that I had read in adult fiction where he was not like a side character. He was like a fully fleshed out character in his own right. And that just blew my 11-year-old brain away. I thought that was so neat. And man, Dragon Riders of Pern. Like I said, I was so mad when I realized I could not actually be a green dragon rider that I joined the Air Force. Because I'm like, if I can't have a dragon, at least I can try and fly. And that's a whole nother story. But the concept of being soul bonded to another being that loved you, all of you, even the parts of you that you didn't like yourself, not in spite of them, but simply because they were part of who you are. Oh man, as a lonely kid, as a lonely teenager, like that was an incredible thing that just stuck with me. So I had that foundational experience of like, man, I want to be a dragon rider. And then I had the Air Force experience. And then I had this Griffin's voice in the back of my head. I'm like, I'm gonna write my own dragon rider story. This is gonna be amazing. And that Griffin just laughed and said, bet. So what I ended up with was a story about a dragon rider cadet who was dang near top of her class. And she was supposed to be a dragon rider. She was going to be a green dragon rider. But sometimes when your best friends are morons and they prank you and it goes horribly wrong at the exact wrong or right moment. And, maybe you end up bonded to a griffin instead. And just like with most of these types of bonds, that can only be broken in death. So she's stuck. Like her entire life has just been blown up. And she's got to figure out how to let go of that old dream and embrace a new one. And it does not hurt that her bondmate is utterly ridiculous and insanely brave. Because she can't even be mad about it. But those three morons, she mad at them. She big mad. And that takes a lot of time for them to work out.
So if you like the bonded angle, the Spring for Spears trilogy that Katie Cross and Derek Allen Sidaway wrote, it's basically, you read that one?
No, I'm just friends with Katie and I love her.
She is awesome. But yeah, that one has, they have giant wolves. So it's basically like dragon riders, except for they're wolves and they ride the wolves because they're so big.
That one's on my TBR, which
it is totally worth it. Absolutely loved it.
No, I didn't know that was awesome.
So this is a fantasy world. She is at this military school to become a dragon rider. Obviously, it doesn't quite work out. Is this high fantasy? Is it urban fantasy? Like, what is the setting for this story?
So funny that we should have been talking about Terry Brooks in the Sword of Shannara. So this is what I would qualify as it's low magic. It is fantasy. It is a low magic setting. All of the magic that exists in this world is tied up in that bond between rider and companion, whether we're talking a dragon or a griffin. Because when you were talking about an entanglement of souls, that's magic right there. Not to mention the fact that we have dragons and griffins. That's freaking magic too. Though, my friends, there is that company that supposedly just recreated the dire wolf, and I would like to just point out this means that we are in the Griffins, the Rise from Ruin timeline, and I am here for it. I want my griffin.
We are pushing for that because they also found a woolly mammoth infant that froze in the tundra, and it flash froze, which means it probably fell in the water, which is how it flash froze, with the contents in its stomach even for what it was eating. But that means we were able to sequence the DNA from it, and they are trying to bring back the woolly mammoth too.
It's craziness. It's so freaking cool. It is sci-fi stuff at its awesomeness. But so Rise from Ruin, the whole Griffin Core series, it is fantasy, and it has some elements of sci-fi to it because I love genre blending. I will add little bits here and there. It's definitely not urban fantasy. It is a post-apocalyptic society. And there are enough hints in the book itself that the readers will be able to figure out what I did pretty quick. So I'm so excited.
So you said this is part of what you call the Griffin Core series?
Yes. So I have plans. You guys, I have so many plans. There is one trilogy planned with Harper's POV, and that's the Griffin Core series. It's going to follow Harper. It's going to mainly focus on the Griffins. And there is another trilogy that will follow on that will stick with those characters. Eventually, though, I will do a Dragon Core series. I've got a prequel series planned for a little further back in the timeline. So I'm planning out a universe of stories in this setting.
Now, does Baen own the universe or just the series? I don't know how your contract was written. Is it possible that you get held up if they don't want it? Or is this a guarantee? I want to write these stories, so I'm going to write them regardless.
Honestly, like at the end of the day, I will write these stories regardless of whether everybody is reading them, Baen is publishing them, or if I'm just writing them for me, because my husband maintains that I am a little mental, and it's because I literally hear these voices in my head. Like, these characters are real to me. I will be writing their stories regardless.
Yeah, you hear the people are like, where do you get the ideas from? And my answer is always, no. The question is, how do you make them stop?
Yes, that.
So my solution to that is I have a little handheld recorder, and when I get those intrusive thought ideas, I just dictate it until I've got it all record it, and then I save that audio file that I'll come back to later, and I just appropriately label it so I know what it is, and then if I need ideas, I can come back to it. But so for you, if you see this as a movie in your head, which is what you're describing, that's how it is for me too. Yes. Do you dictate it to get that out, or do you still do it traditional fingers on keyboard?
Fingers on keyboard all day long. My brain just doesn't, I can't even really listen to audiobooks. Like, my brain just does not process words in that way. I am a visual person, so I do need to write them down. But my solution to just the random ideas or the random bits of dialogue or the scenes that are way too far ahead for the section I'm working on is chaos notes. I love chaos notes because I don't have to worry about whether it's pretty. All I am doing is word vomiting onto the page. And then I go, oh, cool, there's a couple other words, and I can worry about that later. But it's out of my brain, and it helps keep me on track and keep me focused. And when you have multiple different book series and those main character voices in your head, compartmentalization is really important.
So if there's more than one character, there's obviously Harper, I think Travis, you said her name was.
So I've got Harper Tavaros. She is our main character.
Okay.
And we've got her bondmate Felix, who is this sassy, like, ridiculous Griffin who just adores her and also adores pranking her and making fun of her and teasing her. Those two were my favorite to write. Their dynamic is so much fun.
Does this go into having had siblings yourself or watching your kids interact with each other? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, like there is definitely aspects of that. Felix starts out as he hatched from an egg. He's a little tiny baby. He's so cute and adorable. And like you get to watch as he slowly learns how to talk. And Harper is very much like, I miss those 2 weeks when you didn't talk sometimes. And then by the end of the book, he's pretty much a teenager. So yes, my kids have definitely influenced how Harper interacts with him and how Felix behaves, because he's gone from baby to toddler to like bratty teenager. And I might have a little experience with that.
So how old is Harper then?
So the Tennyson Bonded Training Academy, my fun little military academy, is a college. So at the start of this book, Harper is a junior. Yeah, she started her 3rd year. So she's about 20 when this book starts.
Well, if you use the European model, college can start younger. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, so they have to be 18 to start at this college.
So is her family in the picture, or did you do the typical fantasy trope of like fridging the family so you don't have to deal with them?
No. So, okay, yes, she does have a family. They do not focus or feature in the story at all. Like her mother was a green dragon rider. Her father was a gray dragon rider. She grew up in a border town, because I'm like, okay, like world building stuff. What do I do with these freaking awesome giant dragons and griffins and these riders when they retire? Because they get to retire at some point. They can't just like go live wherever they want, because there's some massive support requirements for a dragon. So my solution was, okay, they're inactive reserves, and they go and they have these border towns, and they help secure the borders of Tennyson, our country. And so you have kids that grow up away from like the more civilized cities and the capital and everything, and they grow up around dragons, and they grow up around griffins, and it's like you're growing up in the country versus in a big city. So yes, she has a family. You do not meet them. You might meet them in book 3. I have plans in Chaos Notes.
So you did mention this is a nuclear apocalypse, post-apocalyptic setting, because you used the Shannara Chronicles as an example. Does that mean this is second world, or is this dystopian Earth?
So it's not dystopian.
Post-apocalyptic is a better word. I'm sorry.
Yes. I love dystopian books. Huge fan. I just didn't want to write it in this scenario. So this is a recovering society. And I, to be clear, did not specifically say it was nuclear war. I just said it's post-apocalypse. You're going to have to read it to find out exactly what happened. But it was a lot of fun, kind of taking like those modern day concepts that we have of like nuclear war and apocalypse and all that stuff, and like twisting it just a little bit to give it some fantasy aspects, especially when I was describing the world setting. So.
Well, in all fairness, the nuclear apocalypse part came up when we were talking about Shannara as an example. And it doesn't really say what happened, but given the destruction, it could be. So this is definitely a future Earth where things don't go as great for our lineage, and it changes, right?
I mean, yeah.
Or is this a second world?
So I would qualify this as things went very, very wrong in the past. And they have picked up the pieces, but when you have lost that much, and you have lost that much technology or power or magic or just civilization, it takes a long time to get back to where you were. And so maybe things don't work the way you want them to anymore. And maybe you've got to find new ways to do things. And maybe your neighboring country is kind of a jerk, and you're going to have to figure that out too.
So if this is Earth from a continental point of view, where is the setting for this story? Do you say if you're using real world analogs?
I do not specifically say. However, language drift was super fun to play with. And I happen to live in Memphis, Tennessee. So I think people should be able to figure out pretty quick that Tennyson is a corruption of Tennessee. So it is set in this general area of the country. Nothing is a specific correlation, though. And it definitely doesn't follow any kind of state lines that we have right now. So there are things that people will be able to pick up on.
I was more looking for terrain and weather as opposed to specific territorial lines. So did anything survive the apocalypse? I mean, is there a Piggly Wiggly on the corner for them?
No. But
it really is just an excuse to say Piggly Wiggly because it's a hilarious.
Piggly Wiggly is a fun word to say, but no, there are not those kind of things that survive. But there are some things that survived. And guys, trying to figure out how to describe some things in this setting that I could easily describe to you now, like this is like napalm. Napalm smells like gasoline. They don't have gasoline. They have no idea, like you can't use those words. So getting to take something from our world and figure out how would these characters see it and describe it and relate to it was a lot of fun to play with.
Well, then the other part when you're talking about linguistic drift, because I've done it both as an author and as a historian, is they might call something with an origin word that doesn't tie into what they're using it for. So the linguistic link is broken, but the word still exists, which has happened. In fact, the word for a bundle of sticks in the English language has become something entirely different. And that's an example of a broken link where word meaning shift.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason to it. And English is one of the worst languages for that.
It's a hodgepodge.
It's the goulash of the spoken word. So do you have them speaking English then, or do you just not specify?
They're just speaking English.
Okay. Because you mentioned the direwolves, does that mean that the griffins and the dragons at some point were genetically bred in the past?
No comment.
Okay. Are there other fantasy creatures or fantasy races we might expect?
Yes, you can expect those. You can 100%. This is not a spoiler. I love wolves and dogs and dire wolves, and there will be dire wolves in the Griffins universe because I want them to be there. So there are other creatures, because if you have the power to create griffins and dragons, you're going to use that power to create other things. And some of them are going to be wondrous, beautiful, amazing things. And some of them are going to be very, very bad. And that is
your face.
They might eat like more than your face.
So
no.
For this story, it mentions in the categories on Amazon, and obviously sometimes Amazon assigns categories willy-nilly. That's no relation to the story you wrote, but it does mention that there's some romantic angles in the categorization. So is there a romance subplot? Is this a fantasy romance or a fantasy novel that has romance?
Okay, guys, like you've heard me say this like so many times. I write sci-fi, I write fantasy, and I sneak in romance wherever I can because I write what I love to read. So yes, there is a romantic subplot. It is not an in-your-face romantic subplot. It is secondary. But Idiots to Lovers is the best. All right, fine. It is second best because Enemies to Lovers is even better. But yes,
Idiots to Lovers is not one I've heard before.
Idiots to Lovers, because oh my God, Harper and Dimitri, and no, this is not a spoiler. You are gonna know within the first couple of pages that Harper and Dimitri are freaking idiots. However, when you have been friends since like you went through indoc training together, like just to join the academy, when you've been friends for that many years, you might be a little dumb about certain things. So Harper is oblivious. Dimitri is somewhat less oblivious about what he wants, but then with the whole prank going wrong situation, like everything goes sideways, and those two have a very, very long road to actually get back to where they started. But I am working on book 2.
The problem with Enemies to Lovers is if you do a good enough job making them the enemy, the buy-in to have the turnaround is very hard.
but so much fun when you get it right.
Yeah, but most people don't get it right. I mean, like I've read plenty of them, and I've beta read some, and I'm like, yeah, I still hate the guy. You did a really good job making me hate him. Not so much the lovers part.
Okay,
Maybe
all
I'm
right.
half German, half Scottish. Maybe I just hold a grudge better than most. I don't know. Could be a me thing.
So you said, side tangent, you were interested in the Hit World Valkyrie stuff, correct?
Yes, we're gonna talk about that one because it sounded interesting.
Yeah. I did Enemies to Lovers in Shadows May Fall, which is book 2 of the Valkyries. And I am real interested when you get a chance to read it, if you think I managed to nail, pun intended, Enemies to Lovers the right way.
I'll have to check and see if he did an audiobook, because when
audio.
I was doing some exploration of the various genres, I don't have an unlimited budget. So, I was stuck with what was on Kindle Unlimited. And then I went to Wattpad. And well, first off, I realized the tropes that are popular on Wattpad are not the same as what the paying market. And then of course you dig in and you realize it's because the audience are all kids. But you see a lot of the enemies to lovers there, where they did a really good job making the enemy part, but not so much the lover part. Because I'm like, no, I still want to smash his face in. He's still a jerk. Because I was reading a lot of werewolf stuff to see, just to sort of study the market. Because, like I said, I've always loved wolves, right?
Yeah, so weird you just say that. It's totally relevant to that book.
So speaking of the audience, what if you're going to give this a movie rating? Like, you're a parent too. Like, you obviously consider, what would I let my kids read? What would you like? How would you sell this book for parents that are curious?
Honestly, PG-13 maybe. I mean, it really depends on how comfortable a parent would be with swearing. There is no on-page fun. There is a lot of profanity though, because it's a military story. These are people that fight together and fight with each other, and they are at war. So yes, there's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of fighting, there's death. Not Felix, my Griffin, has all the plot armor. Nothing will ever happen to that Griffin, ever. I promise you that. Nobody else is safe. So yes, there's a lot of swearing, there's death, there's violence. I don't get graphic with it. So I would say teenagers on up could safely read this.
So when you're dealing with militaries, because you've got aviation units in the form of the Griffins and the Dragons.
Yeah, I do.
Did you let your Air Force military culture influence this, or did you use other services? Because, in sci-fi, it's very common to lay into the Marine thing, right?
And Navy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense to a point, because, the Army would be planet-based, and then the Marines are ship to ship. But when you're doing fantasy, you can kind of do whatever you want. So did you lean into your time in the Air Force to design the culture?
Oh, heck yes, I did.
And the inside scoop you got with your husband being an Academy grad would, give you some of that too.
So, okay. For starters, my dragons are 100% based off of current airframes that we have in the Air Force. So yes, I leaned into both the Air Force culture. The dragons, they have different specializations. Green dragons, they're search and rescue because they are my helicopter analogs. They're excellent at hovering. They have some cool little camouflage capabilities. My blue dragons, Jason Cordova was one of my first readers for this, and he loved my blue dragons because they're my U-2 spy planes. They go real high, and they are very good at seeing all the things. And then I've got a few others, but yes, I leaned into the Air Force aspects of that, as well as the culture. The really fun thing though was that I didn't ask my husband or Casey. Casey Zell was also an Air Force Academy grad. I didn't ask them for advice when I was building it. I just did it because, unlike a lot of the smaller detachments for ROTC, ours was big, and it was pretty good about the military aspects. So I went with what I knew, and both of them told me I got it right, which was huge praise, and really, really awesome. So I leaned into the pilot culture. I leaned into what I had experienced with the Air Force. And then I took my Griffins and my my poor traumatized Harper, who fought so hard and trained so long to be a dragon rider. And then I bonded her to a griffin who could totally fly. He can fly, but not with a rider. They're about the size of a horse.
No,
they cannot carry a rider in flight.
She's on the back of the griffin in this.
Oh yeah, because they're still riders. They just ride on the ground. So my griffins, I have two types. I have my mountain griffins, which are your traditional, I got a little baby one. They're your traditional griffin where they've got the talons and the eagle claws and everything. And those are my fighter escorts. They help protect the dragons in the air from some of those really awful things that people created. But my forest griffins have feline paws on all four paws, and they are runners. So they are sneaky scouts. And what they do is they patrol and they go on scouting missions and they ride. So whether you're a griffin rider or a dragon rider, you are still a rider. You still have to know how to ride. And getting to use my horse girl experience in this book was the best thing ever, because the Academy can't put everybody on the back of a dragon or a griffin. You have to learn how to ride on a horse first.
The experience I have with horses would definitely get in the way, because I've ridden the ones where you go in a circle at the zoo.
Yeah.
I've done the ones at the grocery store where you put a quarter in it. And I rode a camel when I was in Iraq, and that's the extent of riding animals.
Oh, well, riding is one of the things that determines your rank at the Academy, and only the top ranked cadets earn a dragon rider slot. And if you can't ride a horse on the ground, they're not going to put you on the back of a dragon where you're going thousands of feet in the air.
So you mentioned, obviously they're flying. That's part of it. Like, what kind of weaponry? Are we talking sword and shield? Are we talking like futuristic ray guns? Like, what do we have for weaponry?
So I might have alarmed Agent Johnson with my search history for this novel because, like, okay, I'm definitely going to give them bows and arrows, like, because that's a recurve bow would be something that would be easy enough to reproduce regardless of your technology level. So they all have to do archery. It's something that I am looking forward to getting back into myself. But it's really not that hard to make napalm, y'all. And when you have dragons that fly, I'm like, oh, I have bombers. So we have napalm bombs, and they're real bad.
Yeah, it's like the first guys that were doing the World War I biplanes were like, hey, we've got grenades. We're over those guys. What if we just dropped one? And it was like that, somebody has that light bulb moment. Like, hey, we're up here. If they can't hit us, let's just drop stuff on them. Yeah. I definitely get that. That instinct is very human.
I mean, and again, this is a recovering society. So it's not like they're having to reinvent the wheel everywhere.
Black powder is relatively easy to put together, and building a flintlock is not that difficult with minimal metallurgy skills. Metallurgy, I should say.
Metallurgy.
There we go. I can speak, I promise. Is that something you looked into, or did you just keep it with the typical, like, sword, shield, bow and arrow?
I kept it to the typical. We have our archers. We have stabby stabs of all varieties, because I mean that's not gonna fail you.
Sometimes the buddy just needs stabbed in the face.
Sometimes Sometimes you just need a really good stabby stab. And it does not matter if I'm writing sci-fi or fantasy. All of my characters have knives or daggers, because they don't run out of ammo. I literally got in an argument once about why my sci-fi characters still needed swords and blades and stuff. I'm like, because sometimes you can't fire a weapon in a spaceship and a blade is always going to work. Anyways, I did not go down the black powder flintlock route for reasons that I cannot discuss right now, because secrets.
So for the armor, did you go with the metal armor or the leather lighter armor, since they're flying, and weight's a consideration?
Exactly. So this was a discussion with some of my early readers. when I say they have flying leathers or riding leathers, there was a discussion on, well, why are they wearing that stuff? It's like, well, one, if you have ever ridden on horseback, you definitely want the right kind of gear, because nobody needs saddle sores, because ow. But two, it doubles as armor. And yes, there are other types of armor that will eventually show up in this series, but the riders, whether dragon or griffin, are always going to have those leathers.
Okay. There's obviously the Griffin track, the dragon track. If people in this world, just because I'm curious, if they don't make the cut for those, what happens to the graduates of this academy?
So, okay, a little bit of background. One of the big themes with this story is choice. So Tennyson, if you test positive, because it's a blood test, it's a recessive genetic trait on whether or not you are bond capable. In Tennyson, you have a choice. You have to take the blood test at 16, and then you have the choice on whether or not you want to go to the academy and become a griffin or a dragon rider. It is encouraged, especially because for the women, if you bond, you are more likely to have a child down the road when you're ready to do that kind of thing, that your child will also be bond capable. Savinia, our enemy nation, does not quite believe in that same level of choice. So if you do test bond capable as a teenager, congratulations on your new career path. With the academy, if you do not score high enough to be a dragon rider, you're now in the griffin rider track. Cool. If you are a good enough rider and you show the right traits, then maybe you're going to be a mountain griffin rider, where you actually still get to fly with the dragon riders, because your job is to protect them. And everybody else is a griffin rider. So I don't really have anybody washing out right up until, the key thing though is again, that choice. Right up until you have bonded, you can quit. You can walk away. You do not have to do it. So if you get up to, say, like sophomore year, your second year of this, college experience, and go, nah, this ain't for me. Okay, there are other colleges, there are other career paths that you can choose. Cool. But once you have bonded, that's it. You no longer have that choice, because your life is irrevocably tied to this other creature, whether it's a griffin or a dragon. And it changes everything, because not only are you now like committed to years of military service, you're never entirely free of that service, because your griffin or your dragon is always going to need that support structure. And also, you can't bond to something that's not human and stay entirely human yourself. So you become a little bit more griffin or a little bit more dragon, and now you're different, and now you're not going to fit in necessarily, especially with those civilians who haven't really been around that kind of environment before. The border towns, yeah, sure. You grew up there, people, they're riders, there's griffins, there's dragons, it's normal. But once you're bonded, you're stuck. That is your life. You made that choice. So
they're basically like jets. If you like the West Side Story.
Oh my God.
When you're talking about that, I'm like picturing that song. When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
I never actually saw West Side Story outside of like little random clips, but yes, if you choose to bond and tangle your dang soul with something else, like a dragon or a griffin or anything else that may or may not eventually appear in this universe, that's perfect.
If one of the bonded pairs dies, do they both die? Some universes do that trope, some don't.
Well, this is a story. Are you ready for this? So we had Dragon Riders of Pern, where the dragon could die and the rider could survive. They might not want to, but they could. And then Fourth Wing kind of flipped that on its head. And I love the concept of, you're not going to survive your dragon's death, but the dragon could survive yours, because they were the more powerful of the two species. And I'm like, that's cool. So I went, yes. And my original concept for this was, you cannot tell me, if you entangle your soul with somebody else, that you could survive their death, because it's not a psychic bond. It's not a, hey, look, here's this little cool bridge between you and me. Like, no, you are one being at this point, and you're going to bleed out, metaphorically speaking, if they die and you didn't die with them right away. And then I talked with Chuck Gannon, who is a diabolically clever, awesome author. We were at Superstars, awesome writing conference that happens every year in Colorado Springs in February of all months. And we were hanging out at the bar, and he asked me what I was working on. And I told him, hey, I'm taking that short story that came in second, and I'm expanding into this novel. And he's like, guys, it was like day 4 of this conference. I was exhausted. I had a headache the entire time because altitude. And I had a beverage in hand. So I'm real proud of the fact that I managed a mostly coherent, like, here's what my book is about response. And he's like, tell me more. I'm like, oh, okay, we doing this. Sweet. So I told him the things, and he's like, okay, what if? And I'm like, oh boy, I need another drink. Okay, what you got? What if, yes, dragons are real different than us, because it's Chuck Gannon. Of course, he went down the science route, which was super freaking cool. He's like, dragons are different from us. They're reptilian. Yes, if a dragon dies or the rider dies, like they go as a pair, right? They can't survive each other's deaths. But what if griffins, being like us, a little bit more like us, at least with being mammalian, what if they could sever the bond and save the rider? And I'm like, oh gosh, dang it. Yes, because I'd already set that up. You see, griffins are sneaky and they're brave. So if a griffin can see their death coming, if they know that it's if they're not surprised by it, they can sever the bond and they can save their rider. If the rider dies, the griffin dies. But if the griffin can sever the bond, the rider can survive. Or they can choose to follow their griffin into the dark. And the choice, again, like I said, it's a big theme with me. Like, the choice to stay or to go is the rider's. And usually they don't choose to stay. And that's one of the key moments with Harper. She's like, why give us the chance if we all just die anyways? And Keaton, who is her brother in arms, he's like, it's a chance for us to fight, to stay if we want it. So that advice from Chuck. There was a reason that man is in my acknowledgments, because he shifted with that one little suggestion. It shifted the entire course of this novel and the series in general. So super grateful to getting to talk with him about that kind of stuff. He's amazing.
So if the writer survives the death of the griffin, right, could they bond again, or is it a once in a lifetime?
Nope. Once bond capable. So if you are bonded to a griffin or a dragon, you can't bond anything else, right? If you survive your griffin's death, it is the Academy and the Tennyson military's policy that you try to bond again. Not just because they don't want to lose that experienced scout, because it takes years to train a scout. They don't want to lose that experience, but also they figured out that if they could convince that rider to bond another griffin, that they'll stay. They won't die. Whereas if they choose not to bond, if they go, no, I can't, then usually within a year they're not going to survive. So the policy is meant for both those reasons, to try and save the rider and to not lose that experience in the field. So yes,
that old get back on the horse approach to trauma.
But man, I don't know that I can do it in their position. Like, wait, so, you want me to betray my first bondmate with a new one, another griffin? Oh.
So normally when we think military academies, you think officers. Is there a delineation in your military between officer and enlisted, or is there just, one rank structure that's kind of more streamlined?
So there are several different organizations within the military. I have my Griffin Riders, I have my Dragon Riders, and I have my Rangers, which 100% developed from the Army Rangers. So we have enlisted, we have conventional soldiers with the normal Army rank structure. So we have enlisted, we have officers on that side. One of the key characters in the second half of Rise from Ruin is Colonel Harburn, who is the fort commander of Harper's active duty fort. The Griffin Riders and the Dragon Riders, though, I based them off of the Air Force structure, where these are lieutenants. These are young lieutenants, all the way up through, lieutenant colonel or colonel. So I went with I went with what I knew. I might not know how to be a Dragon Rider, but I do know how the Air Force works.
So presumably the people that are mucking the stables would be your enlisted aircraft mechanics and such?
Not really. I mean, I really had the cadets muck in the stables because...
not while they're at the academy, but eventually they're going to go to their base and they're not going to have other cadets to muck their stables for them. So
they won't, but my friend, Griffins and Dragons are just as smart as you and me. So they're not going to be like, well, yes, they did have to muck the stables when they were dealing with horses at the academy. They're not cleaning up after their bond mates because they wouldn't make a mess. But yes, there are enlisted members at the forts that are part of the support structure. We have enlisted members in the field. We have conventional soldiers. Getting to play with that a little bit more in book 2 has been a lot of fun, which I am currently working on. So, yeah, I have all sorts of officers enlisted in all sorts of career fields.
So do you know when the audiobook for this? Because obviously we're recording this before this book goes live. I want to say it goes live on the 3rd of June.
Yes.
This should be airing on the 6th, so it'll after it's live. Do you know when the audiobook is coming out?
The audiobook, I actually just got permission to start shrieking about this. The audiobook should be out September 30th from Podium.
Okay. Podium does good work. They've done some of mine.
Nice.
Do you know who your narrator is yet?
I do, and I think it's Nora. I always say her name wrong. Nora Sofrin. She did some of the audio for Alona Andrews, and I am still shrieking that I managed to get her to narrate this. This is
okay. So for this one, you said this is going to be a trilogy, and then you're going to do spin-off series with different characters. So the Dragon Core, and that is that going to be different characters? Is it going to tie in directly to this one, do you think? So
the Dragon Core series, that's literally it's just vibes. I don't have anything for that one yet. That's okay. It's a tomorrow, 5 years from now, Melissa problem. But Rise from Ruin, the original trilogy, will follow Harper, and the second trilogy will continue to follow Harper and all of the original characters.
Okay. So you're gonna take the Bane trilogy of trilogy approaches?
I mean, I would be sad about getting to do that,
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Well, we'll see. Hopefully people like it.
So from point of view, obviously Harper is the main character. Do we get to go, is it first person or third person? First person?
It is. It is first person.
Is it entirely from her POV then?
Yes.
Okay.
So it is entirely from Harper's POV, but you also, because she is soul bonded to Felix, you get his POV too. The fun part with this was, okay, you can't talk to somebody else's Griffin. Well, you can talk to them and they can understand you just fine. They know English, but you can't hear them. You can't hear somebody else's bondmate because your soul isn't entangled with theirs. So what I came up with was the Griffins relaying for each other, which kind of replaced shortwave radios and communication in the field. Like just having your Griffins relaying to each other meant that you don't have to speak out loud, which when you're scouting, that seemed like something that would be really important to be able to do. And I had a lot of fun with that because Felix tends to imitate the other voices. He'll drop his voice lower for certain characters or like add a little bit of an accent for another. So it was a lot of fun and getting to get around that. Okay, I am limited because I chose a first person POV, but here's how I can get around the rules and still get you to hear essentially what the other Griffins or Dragons are saying.
So obviously, like the backstory that you create for your characters impacts the way you portray them when you write them. So obviously nothing is canon because you haven't written it yet, but just if you were, Melissa, the god of this universe, how do you think her parents are going to relate to her becoming a Griffin writer in that whole scenario?
Oh, wow. That is a great question that I have no prepared answer for. Okay. So I think that Harper's parents were pretty dang supportive of her. And it is canon at this point. If y'all read the short story that's up for free on Bay's website, This Means War, we kind of hear just a tiny little bit about, Harper, like one of her earliest memories is going on a flight with her mother and her green dragon. And then later on getting to go flying with her father on his gray dragon. So she was obviously well loved, right? And her father did everything he could to train her and prepare her for the academy because he knew that she wanted to be a dragon rider like her mother. Like she wanted to be a green rider. She wanted to save people. And I think that they are going to be proud of her regardless. They might hold a grudge against Dimitri, Callum, and Zane for the crap they pulled on her. But I was trying to explain this to somebody else. Harper in no way is resentful of Felix because you can't be resentful of the other half of your soul. And yes, he is wonderful and he's snarky and he's sassy and he's ridiculous and brave and everything you want a Griffin to be. But he's also exactly what Harper ended up needing. So I think her parents are going to be pretty happy with what she's managed to accomplish despite a slightly rocky transition period.
Well, if they were military themselves, they're going to understand some of the shenanigans that happens in general. So that's not going to, like, it'd be different, talking to civilian parents who don't understand. Like when I was, dealing with the military, explaining why I thought my friends were mad at me because they were being nice. Like if I tell a civilian that, they're like, what the heck's wrong with you? I tell someone in the military, like, oh yeah, ooh, you pissed them off.
Right? Wow, they're smiling at me and they're being really nice. Oh God, either something's really wrong or I really, really messed up.
Right. So like I would suspect that being familiar with the military, you get a little bit of buy-in from them.
Yes, absolutely. Especially because, Harper was not innocent in this, y'all. Like, This Means War, that short story, it tells you how the prank war started. And Harper is the one that started it, okay? Like, she had reason. And these guys, like, man, they formed, like, a strong friendship bond, which is the reason why she just felt so betrayed, right? Like, there is such a thing as taking a prank too far, and anything that could impact your future, that might be just a little too far. But she was a willing participant in the prank war, and I may or may not have participated in a few prank wars in my time. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Hypothetically, maybe in an alternate universe. All right, so we're running up against the point where anything I ask you feels like it's going into spoilers, and why I don't care about spoilers because, hello, brain damage, I'll forget anyway, so no harm, no foul. Other people are less blessed by explosive sentience affecting their life. Yes. But other than the bomb, they had a blast in Iraq. So, is there? Nobody at home laughed at that one because I've said it so many times. So I have to tell it to new people who haven't heard the joke. See,
it's amazing. I love it. 10 out of 10 stars.
All right, perfect. Is there anything about the Rise from Ruin Griffin Core universe that we haven't talked about that you think they need to know?
Oh, goodness. That is a loaded question because I really don't want to give spoilers away. But, yeah, I think we covered the main parts. And at the end of the day, Harper is stubborn and she's not going to give up. So you know that she is going to embrace that new dream. You know that she is going to do what she has to. And she's also going to be a dumb second lieutenant. So you know she's going to make some really bad mistakes. But the one thing that we really haven't touched on is her relationship with Keaton. So Keaton is her brother in arms, right? And getting to develop their relationship, which Keaton is not based off anybody in particular in my life. However, he is very much based off of a number of men that I had the privilege of serving with and knowing that they had my back. So getting to incorporate that and create a character that they did not start out on the best foot. Harper ended up bonded to a Griffin by accident. Well, that Griffin was supposed to go to somebody else. And Keaton has to step up and be the team leader in that person's place because now that cadet has to wait. So we have a very rocky start with their relationship and getting to figure out how they can grow closer as first as teammates, and then by the end of the book that he is her brother in every way that matters. So that was one of the main threads that ties this whole thing together, is that it doesn't matter how you occasionally feel, you are never alone. And when you're bonded to a Griffin, you are literally never alone. But Keaton, her relationship with him, he never let her feel alone, even when he didn't like her. And he did not like her at all at first, because Harper's an arrogant little shit at the beginning of this book. She's used to being the best. And now she's the worst.
So it presumably, sometimes officers that graduate from the Air Force have a lag time because you got so many graduating in the spring and only so many pilot slots. So the pilots, sometimes they're waiting 8 months before there's another opening. Did you kind of play on that with the number of eggs? Like, we, first come, first serve by rank, and then, you'll get the next round and the next round kind of thing?
So I didn't detail it. I did kind of allude to it a little bit. Like, we have this, dragons were arranged by flight. So you were Alpha Flight, Bravo Flight. Griffins are organized by clutch. So Harper was an Echo clutch. And Charlie and Delta were grouped with them. So I don't get too detailed about it, but I do imply like, oh, hey, this, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie clutch, or Foxtrot or whatever. These guys they're in a slightly different group because their Griffins hatched at a different time. It is real funny that you bring that up, though, because I was a stash lieutenant for almost a year before I started pilot training, because there was a reason I wrote this story, you guys, because I worked my butt off. I earned a pilot slot. I got to go to pilot training. I had my private pilot license. I got halfway through undergraduate pilot training with the Air Force flying T6s, and then I was medically disqualified. No pranks involved. My ears just decided that while I love flying, they did not. So that also really kind of helped inspire Harper's story a little bit.
So when you grounded her, you were channeling your angst.
I mean, it was a bit of a change going from being a pilot trainee to being just a airfield ops officer. And I had fun putting a little bit of that attitude in a certain Captain Westbrook, who was a fun character. You're not going to like him, but you're not supposed to.
So one of the things that sets the pilot's office, they like to do the call signs. That's kind of bled over because of Hollywood to other branches. Like, we had them for our gun trucks. It's almost a universal replacement for nicknames, which, what we used to call it if you weren't a pilot, the call sign. Did you play into that for this? So like, do the writers get nicknames or call signs, or however you delineate the title?
Yeah, they do. So Griffin writers get Griffin names, and they don't give them to each other. They're named by their Griffin. So Harper is Harpy, which sounds like it's just a baby Griffin playing off her name, but there's a reason that Felix named her Harpy. And some of the Griffin names are, exactly what you would expect. It's a shortening of a last name or a play off their first name. But there's always a reason why the Griffin does that. And whether or not they share
who's from Kentucky, we call Kentuck because we're creative.
I mean, nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it just has to make sense. And a Griffin name has to be shared. If the Griffin doesn't want to share the name, or in Felix's case, maybe he's just waiting for the right moment. And I made Jonathan Cohn laugh out loud with this line, but like, Felix was holding on to her Griffin name like, Oh, I'm going to tell them that I call you Harpy when I'm ready. Live in fear. Griffin is so evil, and I love him so much.
I mean, as far as nicknames go, Harpy isn't the worst I've ever heard.
It's not. It's not a bad nickname, but there's a reason for it.
I mean, it's naming your ride or nicknames. That's kind of a military tradition that's universal. I mean, even tankers, scourge upon the army who aren't as cool as infantry. Yes, come at me, send me the emails, people. They named their tanks too. Like my favorite I saw on one of the tanks was ASVAB Waiver.
Oh, dang. Nice.
They named themselves. So, I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I mean, they're self-aware. So, like, it's always cool when you see fantasy military units take that culture that we can relate to and port it over, because it doesn't always port cleanly, right? Like, military culture, a military organization. And obviously, you want it to be somewhat creative. So you don't want everything to just be the Legion or the Army regiments or whatever. Like, so it's fun to see people get creative, like the clutch, for instance, that you did for the Griffins.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
it's not the first time I have taken fighter pilot culture and appropriated it for my writing. My Four Horsemen novel, Companions in Chains. I got real sick of seeing those dropship pilots dying all the time for the plot, so I wrote a whole novel about a dropship pilot who doesn't die, and her call sign is Ducky, because she tried to say that she was an awkward drunk during her naming ceremony, and instead she said she was an awkward duck, and then they made her sing the Rubber Ducky song, and now she's stuck with Ducky as a call sign.
I mean, there could be worse, but all right. So as we bring this puppy to a close, is there anything else you think they need to know?
They need to know that Felix is like the most awesome Griffin ever, and they should totally read Rise from Ruin just for Felix, but also, like, if you like idiots to lovers, if you like morons who are your best friends and you kind of hate them, and if you want a main character who picks herself back up after getting kicked in the teeth and figures her stuff out and manages to rise from ruin, then I think you're going to like it.
Okay, and if this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part, people. And with that, Melissa, how can listeners and viewers at home find you on the Wild Wild interwebs? As usual, I will link all of it in the show notes. So
you can find me at my website, melissaolthoff.com or .net. You can find me spending way too much time on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now I'm on, X. And now I'm on TikTok. So I am in all the places. You can find me on Amazon. You can find me at Bane's website, Chris Kennedy Publishing's website. I am feral in random places. And you can find me at LibertyCon in Chattanooga in less than a month. And then I'll be at DragonCon in Atlanta over Labor Day weekend.
Outstanding. So this is the part, dear listener, where I tell you can find us on our link tree at linktr.ee, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We've got our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Madam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email. And you can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee till it pours out of their eyeballs, people, and then we'll swim away on a river of Java goodness. And if you want some of that Java goodness, if you want some of that coffee brand coffee, the link is in the show notes. The discount code is podcast grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And more than that, if you're American and you care, you're shopping local, because those are roasted in the continental United States and then shipped out with love. You can almost smell the love or coffee. I kind of get those two confused sometimes. Same, really, if you think about it. And with that, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you for coming on, Melissa. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to have you back. In fact, as you listen to this later in June, we are doing your feral friends on to talk about magic.
We are going to have so much fun. This was a blast. Pun intended.
Probably too much fun. It's probably more fun than is legal, but we're just going to roll with it. And with that, we're going to hit the end button.